On February 4, 2025, at a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, former U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled a provocative five-point plan proposing U.S. ownership of the Gaza Strip. This announcement, made amid ongoing conflict and humanitarian crises in the region, has generated a wave of international backlash, raising serious ethical, legal, and political concerns. Overview of the proposal. Trump's plan entails several key components aimed at reshaping Gaza's future. 1. U.S. ownership of Gaza. Trump suggested that following a ceasefire in the region, the United States would take control of Gaza, asserting that this would pave the way for significant economic development and infrastructure repair. 2. Relocation of Palestinians. The proposal includes relocating nearly 2 million Palestinians currently living in Gaza to neighboring countries such as Egypt and Jordan. Critics have condemned this aspect as a potential act of ethnic cleansing. 3. Military presence. Trump indicated that a U.S. military presence might be necessary to ensure stability during the transition, despite his previous America First stance, which called for reduced foreign military engagements. For legal implications, legal experts and diplomats have highlighted that Trump's plan could breach international law, with accusations of colonialism and forced population transfers being central to the criticisms. 5. Mixed reactions. While some Israeli officials have expressed cautious support for the idea, leaders from Arab states and global powers have overwhelmingly rejected it, reaffirming their commitment to a two-state solution and condemning any forcible displacement of Palestinians. Immediate reactions. Following Trump's announcement, reactions poured in from various stakeholders. Palestinian Authority and Hamas. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas denounced the plan as a severe violation of international law, asserting that peace cannot be achieved without recognizing Palestinian rights. Hamas labeled the proposal a crime against humanity. International community. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres stressed the need to adhere to international law, warning against any form of ethnic cleansing. Egypt and Jordan's governments also voiced their disapproval, emphasizing the necessity of a two-state solution. Israeli response. Netanyahu, while standing beside Trump during the announcement, expressed that the U.S. plan could change the future of Gaza. However, he did not explicitly endorse the full scope of Trump's proposal. Detailed reactions from various sources. 1. CBS News. CBS reported that Trump's comments provoked immediate backlash, particularly from Palestinian leaders and human rights advocates. The network emphasized the potential destabilizing effect of the plan on ongoing negotiations regarding hostages held by Hamas. 2. ABC News. ABC highlighted the legal ramifications of Trump's proposal, with experts labeling it a throwback to colonialism and forced population transfers. They pointed out the contradiction in Trump's earlier America First policy, which aimed to limit U.S. military involvement abroad. 3. The Guardian. The Guardian framed the announcement as a significant departure from traditional U.S. foreign policy, emphasizing the implications of Trump's plan for both the Palestinian population and international relations. Long-term implications and analysis. The announcement comes at a time of fragile ceasefire conditions in Gaza, with ongoing negotiations regarding the release of hostages. Experts warn that Trump's proposal might complicate these negotiations and exacerbate tensions in the region. The potential for a U.S. takeover of Gaza raises critical questions about sovereignty, human rights, and the prospects for peace. Many analysts argue that Trump's plan does not address the core issues of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and could further entrench divisions. Conclusion. Trump's proposal for a U.S. takeover of Gaza represents a radical shift in American foreign policy and has sparked widespread controversy and concern. As the international community grapples with the implications of this announcement, the focus remains on the urgent need for a viable solution that respects the rights and aspirations of the Palestinian people. The plan's reception highlights the complexities of achieving stability and peace in a region marked by decades of conflict. The proposal put forth by Donald Trump regarding the U.S. takeover of Gaza presents several counterintuitive aspects that challenge conventional understandings of international relations, humanitarian responses, and geopolitical strategies. 1. U.S. ownership and control. The idea that the United States would assume ownership of Gaza is strikingly bold and runs contrary to the established norms of sovereignty and self-determination. Historically, international law prohibits the acquisition of territory by force. And Trump's proposal could be perceived as an attempt to establish a colonial-like governance over a region that has been fraught with conflict and humanitarian crises. The counterintuitive element here is that a country like the U.S., which has positioned itself as a proponent of democracy and self-governance, would advocate for taking over a territory rather than supporting its inhabitants' rights to self-determination. 2. Relocation of Palestinian population. Trump's suggestion for the relocation of nearly 2 million Palestinians to neighboring countries raises profound ethical and legal questions. The notion of forcibly moving a population is reminiscent of historical instances of ethnic cleansing, yet Trump presents it as a humanitarian gesture, implying that Palestinians would be better off elsewhere. This dissonance between the humanitarian rhetoric and the reality of forced displacement underscores a counterintuitive disconnect in how such proposals are framed versus their implications. 3. Military involvement. Trump's openness to deploying U.S. troops to maintain stability during the transition contradicts his previous America First policy, which emphasized minimizing foreign military entanglements. This shift raises questions about the true motivations behind the proposal. Is it genuinely about stabilizing Gaza, or is it a strategic maneuver to reassert U.S. influence in the region? The counterintuitive nature of advocating for military presence to facilitate what is essentially a takeover contrasts sharply with the prevailing narrative of reducing U.S. military commitments abroad. For international law and global reaction, the proposal has been met with significant international backlash, with leaders and experts emphasizing that it could violate international law. The counterintuitive aspect here is that Trump's approach seems to disregard the prevailing global legal frameworks designed to protect human rights and maintain international order. By framing the plan as a potential pathway to stability and economic development, Trump overlooks the foundational principles of international law that prioritize the rights and autonomy of affected populations. 5. Support from Israeli officials versus Arab nations. While Israeli officials have cautiously welcomed Trump's initiative, the overwhelming rejection from Arab nations and other global leaders highlights a counterintuitive divergence in perspectives. The Israeli government, particularly under Netanyahu, is seen as supportive of aggressive measures against perceived threats. Yet the broader Arab community remains committed to a two-state solution and the rights of Palestinians. This contrast illustrates the complexities of geopolitical alliances and the varying interpretations of what constitutes security and stability in the region. 6. Historical context and future implications. Trump's vision of transforming Gaza into a Riviera of the Middle East is laden with historical implications that ignore the deep-rooted issues of identity, displacement, and trauma experienced by the Palestinian people. The counterintuitive nature of envisioning economic prosperity through the lens of foreign ownership and development while simultaneously displacing the existing population raises fundamental questions about the feasibility and morality of such a vision. 7. Potential for diplomatic disruption. The proposal could potentially undermine ongoing diplomatic efforts such as the fragile ceasefire and negotiations for hostage exchanges, while some argue that it might spur regional actors to propose their own solutions. The more immediate effect appears to be a hardening of positions among parties like Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. This counterintuitive outcome suggests that rather than fostering dialogue, Trump's proposal may deepen divisions and complicate an already volatile situation. In summary, Trump's 5-point plan for U.S. oversight in Gaza stands in stark contrast to established international norms, humanitarian principles, and the complex realities on the ground. The counterintuitive elements of the proposal reveal a disconnect between the proclaimed objectives of stability and development and the underlying realities of displacement, sovereignty, and international law. The proposal put forth by Donald Trump regarding the U.S. takeover of Gaza is laden with implications that many observers may overlook amidst the immediate backlash and condemnation from various parties. Here are some significant aspects of the proposal that deserve closer examination for their broader significance. 1. Legal and ethical violations. Many experts and commentators have highlighted the potential legal ramifications of Trump's plan, specifically pointing to violations of international law. The idea of forcibly relocating nearly 2 million Palestinians could be classified as ethnic cleansing, a term that carries grave moral and legal implications. This is significant because it not only affects the immediate population but also sets a precedent for how the international community addresses such actions in the future. The normalization of discussions around forced displacement can embolden similar actions elsewhere, potentially leading to a global deterioration of human rights standards. 2. U.S. military involvement. Trump's suggestion that U.S. military presence may be necessary for stability in Gaza is a notable contradiction to his prior America First rhetoric, which criticized extensive foreign military engagements. This shift could signal a new era of U.S. involvement in Middle Eastern conflicts under the guise of humanitarian intervention, raising concerns about the long-term military commitments and the potential for further entanglement in regional conflicts. This aspect of the proposal could also resonate domestically, affecting public opinion on military engagement abroad. 3. Rejection of the two-state solution. Trump's comments about relocating Palestinians and redefining Gaza's future starkly contrast with the long-standing international consensus on the necessity of a two-state solution. The significance here lies in the potential shift in U.S. foreign policy, which has traditionally supported this framework as a pathway to peace. By sidestepping this established narrative, the proposal may embolden hardline factions within Israel while alienating moderate Arab states and undermining decades of diplomatic efforts aimed at peace in the region. 4. The impact on regional dynamics. The reactions from regional powers such as Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia reflect a significant geopolitical shift. Their rejection of Trump's plan underscores the fragility of U.S. alliances in the Middle East. The proposal's implications for regional stability cannot be overstated, as it risks exacerbating tensions not just between Israelis and Palestinians but also among Arab states that are already grappling with internal and external pressures. This could lead to a re-evaluation of diplomatic relations and alliances in the region. 5. Economic aspirations versus humanitarian concerns. Trump's vision of transforming Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East may be seen as an attempt to shift the narrative from humanitarian crises to economic opportunities. However, this perspective fails to address the fundamental rights and dignity of the Palestinian people. The commercialization of a conflict zone raises ethical questions about who benefits from such developments and at what cost to the local population. This economic narrative risks overshadowing the human rights issues, diverting attention from the urgent need for humanitarian aid and respect for human dignity. 6. Psychological implications for Palestinians. The plan's implications for the psyche of the Palestinian people are profound. The notion of forced relocation and the characterization of Gaza as a hellhole could further entrench feelings of hopelessness and despair among the population. It may also galvanize resistance movements and exacerbate existing tensions as individuals and communities respond to perceived threats against their identity and existence. This aspect of the proposal is crucial for understanding the long-term impact on societal structures within Gaza and the broader Palestinian territories. 7. Historical context. Trump's rhetoric echoes colonial-era attitudes towards indigenous populations and territories, invoking a narrative where external powers dictate the fate of local communities. This historical parallel is significant as it highlights ongoing colonial dynamics in modern geopolitics, raising questions about sovereignty, autonomy, and the rights of indigenous populations. Recognizing this historical context can inform contemporary discussions about rights governance and the legitimacy of territorial claims. Conclusion. The overlooked elements of Trump's Gaza proposal reveal deeper implications that extend beyond immediate political reactions. The legal, ethical, and geopolitical ramifications are vast and require careful consideration from policymakers, activists, and scholars alike. Understanding these nuances is essential for fostering a more informed and comprehensive dialogue about the future of Gaza, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and the role of the U.S. in international relations. 1. U.S. ownership of Gaza and its implications. Trump's proposal for the United States to take long-term ownership of Gaza raises significant questions about sovereignty and international law. The suggestion that the U.S. would assume control over a territory that is internationally recognized as part of the Palestinian state is seen as a potential violation of international norms. This aspect of the plan invites an in-depth examination of historical precedents, the legality of such actions under international law, and the potential ramifications for U.S. foreign policy and global perceptions of American leadership. 2. Relocation of the Palestinian population. The proposal to relocate nearly 2 million Palestinians to neighboring countries has sparked outrage and is perceived as a form of ethnic cleansing. This raises ethical concerns surrounding the forced displacement of populations and the humanitarian implications of such actions. A thorough analysis is warranted on the historical context of population transfers, the rights of displaced peoples, and the potential consequences for regional stability and international relations. 3. Potential military involvement. Trump's indication that U.S. military presence might be necessary to ensure stability during the transition contradicts his previous America First policy of reducing foreign military engagements. This point necessitates a discussion on the motivations behind military involvement in foreign territories, the historical outcomes of similar actions, and the potential impact on U.S. military and diplomatic relations in the Middle East. For international reaction and geopolitical ramifications, the widespread condemnation from international leaders, human rights advocates, and regional powers emphasizes the geopolitical complexities surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The clear divide between U.S.-aligned Israeli perspectives and broader Arab and international responses highlights the challenges of navigating this multifaceted issue. An analysis of the potential shifts in alliances, the role of international organizations, and the implications for ongoing peace processes is essential for understanding the broader impact of Trump's proposal on regional dynamics. 1. The partition of India. 1947. The partition of British India into two independent dominions, India and Pakistan, was marked by the mass displacement of populations based on religious lines. Hindus and Sikhs migrated to India while Muslims moved to Pakistan, leading to widespread violence and communal riots. The partition resulted in approximately 15 million people being displaced, and it is estimated that over 1 million lost their lives in the ensuing chaos. The partition is often cited as a significant historical example of forced population transfers and ethnic cleansing that had profound implications for the subcontinent's political landscape. 2. The Armenian Genocide. 1915 to 1923. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire systematically exterminated 1.5 million Armenians, which is widely recognized as one of the first modern genocides. The Armenian population faced forced deportations, mass killings, and death marches. Many Armenians were relocated to the Syrian desert, where they faced starvation and violence. The genocide remains a highly sensitive topic, with ongoing debates about recognition and reparations, reflecting the lasting impact of ethnic cleansing on national identities and historical narratives. 3. The displacement of Native Americans. 19th century. The forced removal of Native American tribes from their ancestral lands in the United States, particularly during the 1830s, is a significant example of ethnic cleansing. Policies such as the Indian Removal Act of 1830 led to the relocation of thousands of Native Americans to designated Indian Territory, resulting in the infamous Trail of Tears. This period was marked by violence, disease, and high mortality rates among the displaced populations. The legacy of these actions continues to affect Native American communities today as issues of sovereignty, land rights, and cultural preservation remain central to their struggles. The future outlook regarding Donald Trump's proposed 5-point plan for U.S. oversight in Gaza postulates a complex interplay of geopolitical, humanitarian, and strategic factors. Here are key predictions and considerations for the future based on the current proposal and its implications. 1. Geopolitical tensions. Trump's plan is likely to exacerbate existing geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Countries like Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia have already expressed vehement opposition to the idea of relocating Palestinians, viewing it as a direct affront to their sovereignty and a violation of international law. Future diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Arab states may become strained, potentially leading to a cooling of ties that have been tenuously developed over recent years. 2. International legal challenges. The proposed U.S. takeover of Gaza raises significant legal concerns under international law, particularly regarding forced population transfers and occupation. Should the U.S. attempt to implement this plan, it may face legal challenges in international courts and widespread condemnation from human rights organizations. This could lead to sanctions or other forms of diplomatic isolation for the U.S., complicating its foreign policy objectives in the region. 3. Humanitarian crisis escalation. The potential relocation of nearly 2 million Palestinians is likely to create a humanitarian crisis. Neighboring countries may not have the capacity or willingness to absorb such a large influx of people, potentially resulting in overcrowded refugee camps and increased instability. Humanitarian organizations may struggle to provide adequate support, leading to further international scrutiny and criticism of U.S. actions. 4. Impact on Israeli-Palestinian relations. Trump's plan, perceived as a deviation from traditional U.S. support for a two-state solution, could harden positions on both sides. Israeli hardliners may see this as an opportunity to push for further territorial claims, while Palestinians may become more entrenched in their resistance, potentially leading to renewed violence. Any semblance of peace negotiations could be derailed as both sides react defensively to perceived threats to their national identities and claims to territory. 5. Domestic political repercussions in the U.S. Domestically, Trump's proposal may generate significant political division. While some factions within the Republican Party may support the plan as a bold move to secure U.S. interests, others, including more moderate Republicans and Democrats, are likely to oppose it vehemently. This could lead to significant public backlash, influencing future elections and shaping U.S. foreign policy for years to come. 6. Long-term military engagement. Should the U.S. proceed with its plan and deploy military forces to Gaza, it could result in a prolonged military engagement reminiscent of past U.S. interventions in the Middle East. The presence of U.S. troops in Gaza could lead to increased hostility towards the U.S. and the region, potentially becoming a focal point for anti-American sentiment and insurgent activities. 7. Shift in global power dynamics. The implementation of such a plan may provoke reactions from global powers like Russia and China, who have historically supported Palestinian sovereignty. These countries may seek to capitalize on U.S. missteps by strengthening their own ties with Arab nations and expanding their influence in the region, potentially leading to a new geopolitical order that marginalizes U.S. interests. 8. Potential for new peace initiatives. In the wake of Trump's controversial proposal, there could be a renewed call for peace initiatives from other global leaders or organizations seeking to re-establish a framework for negotiations based on the two-state solution. However, the feasibility of such initiatives would depend on the willingness of both Israelis and Palestinians to engage in compromise, which currently seems tenuous. 9. Human rights advocacy and global response. The backlash against the proposal will likely galvanize human rights advocates globally, leading to increased activism and pressure on the U.S. government to reconsider its stance. International bodies like the United Nations may intensify their scrutiny of U.S. actions, calling for accountability and adherence to international norms. 10. Cultural and social implications. The ongoing narrative surrounding Gaza and the Palestinian plight will continue to resonate in global discourse, influencing public opinion, media coverage, and cultural representations. This could lead to heightened awareness and advocacy among younger generations, potentially shifting societal perspectives on U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. In conclusion, Trump's 5-point plan for U.S. oversight in Gaza presents a highly contentious and precarious scenario with far-reaching implications. The complexity of the situation suggests that future outcomes will depend heavily on the responses of various stakeholders, including regional governments, international bodies, and the global community at large. The interplay of these factors will shape the trajectory of U.S. Middle East relations for years to come.